Good afternoon and welcome to HSA's eCTD portal training session. It gives us great pleasure to share the long-awaited portal with all of you. My name is Claire and I will be moderating today's session. So before we start with the actual content of today's training, I'd like to quickly mention that our intent today is to provide general guidance, which is current and factual. But due to time constraints, we are unable to cover all possible scenarios. So if you foresee a very specific circumstance which has not been included in our presentation, you're welcome to consult with us directly. So please note the scope of today's training. It's mainly centered on HSA's eCTD portal, and specifically we'll be covering what the portal is for and how you can use it. So we will not be covering aspects which are related to the specification, nor will we be providing advice on how the package should be compiled. As such, if you have any questions unrelated to the portal, they may not be addressed during this session, but you can write in with an inquiry anyway. So let's look at the outline for today's training. Boon Kian will start us off with updates on the Singapore eCTD submissions. Mahesh will then provide us with an overview of CorpPass, followed by a presentation from Eric. So Eric is our representative from the vendor consortium, and he will be providing us with a demonstration of the actual portal. Wei Lu will then take us through a few points on what to expect in the coming months before we take time for questions and answers. And our branch director, Agnes, will then give us some closing comments before we end for today. You're welcome to submit your questions throughout this session, and we will be answering them live during the Q&A time slot. You may use the Q&A function within Zoom to post your questions, upvote someone else's question, or you can also add your comments to an existing question if you have anything that you would like to add. Lastly, your feedback from today's training is important for us as we continue to engage you in our eCTD journey. We'll be showing a QR code leading to the feedback form, and we hope you can take a couple of minutes to fill that in before you leave. So without further ado, it gives me great pleasure to hand the session over to Boon Kian for the first presentation on Singapore submission updates. Boon Kian, please.
Good afternoon. Okay, so I will be going through the Singapore submission update portion. Okay, so firstly, what is eCTD submission? What does it mean? Okay, eCTD is a standard format for submission of dossiers, including responses to HSA. So this means that for the normal, for the regulatory application, it will still have to be submitted using our application system, PRISM. Similarly, regulatory outcome will be communicated to applicants also via PRISM. But for the submission of dossier, if you are using eCTD, it will have to be submitted via the eCTD portal. And for eCTD submission, we will only accept dossier format in ICH CTD only. In comparison, if you're not submitting via eCTD, the regulatory application and the outcome are both still in PRISM, but dossier will be submitted either using CD, DVDs, or EasyShare, or you can even upload the dossier in PRISM directly. And for non-eCTD submission, we will accept dossier format in both ICH CTD or ASEAN CTD format. Okay, so moving on, for registration submission, firstly, companies should prepare the eCTD submission according to our Singapore requirements. After that, companies should go into our eCTD portal and obtain the eCTD ID from the portal, or you can use a previous ID which you have obtained. So for more information on how to obtain the eCTD ID, Eric will be sharing that with you shortly. Now before that, we move on first. So after obtaining the eCTD ID from portal, you can submit your application in PRISM, which is the usual application filing, and obtain a PRISM application number. With this, you should prepare your eCTD submission package with both the eCTD ID and the PRISM application number stated in the envelope. Once this package is ready, the package should be uploaded through the eCTD portal. This is for registration submissions. Similarly, for DMF submissions, applicants or DMF holders should prepare the eCTD submission according to our specification and obtain the eCTD ID from portal. The difference is, instead of submitting the application through PRISM, you should obtain a DMF number from HSA. With that, prepare the eCTD submission package with both the eCTD ID and the DMF number in the envelope. The entire eCTD package can be submitted through the eCTD portal. Okay, so when I keep talking about eCTD portal, this is what it looks like. This is the portal's login page. And as you can see, first thing is to log in using CodePass. So I will be handing over to Mahesh to talk more about CodePass.
Thank you, Boon Kim. Good afternoon all. I'm Mahesh and I'll be walking you through CodePass. Okay, so all of you must be familiar with SyncPass. So SyncPass is a trusted identity system for individuals which can use for transacting with government services and private services. Similar to that, CodePass is an authorization system for entities to manage digital service access of their employees who need to perform business transactions on behalf of the entity. I also want to highlight that CodePass is a whole of government service and is not managed by HSA. What this means is if you have any issues with CodePass, you will need to reach out to the CodePass central team for addressing those issues and answer any queries or doubts that you might have. There are plenty of resources for the CodePass processes. I will share that with you during this presentation. So CodePass is available for both Singapore registered entities as well as foreign registered entities. So for Singapore registered entities, users who have NRIC or FIN as well as foreign ID can be part of the CodePass system. Right? And entities that transact with the government should register for and set up CodePass. Right? So one CodePass account, you can transact with multiple government services. So I'll walk you through the process for foreign registered entities. How do you register for CodePass? It's a very similar process for local entities as well. There is one difference. For foreign registered entities, you can authorize third-party service providers to transact on your behalf for selected digital services. That's one big difference between foreign registered entities and local entities. As you can see, there is a very simple process three-step process for onboarding to CodePass. So first step is to get all the required documents ready. So documents like business registration document and identity documents, you need to get it ready. And then you also need to identify the people and their corresponding roles that you want to allocate them to CodePass for doing different actions. So there are many, CodePass provides you with different roles, with different privileges and different access. And you need to identify the right people for the right roles. Once you have this, you can submit the information to CodePass and register. And once the registration is confirmed, you can start transacting using CodePass. So it's a very simple three-step process. I also want to go through how you set up CodePass for foreign users, as this has been one of the queries that we have been asked many times. So if you have foreign users who are not present locally and have foreign IDs, how do you provide them access to your CodePass account? So foreign users need to apply for SyncPass Foreign User Account. In short, it's called SFA, through CodePass or other SFA organizations. So not all organizations can issue a SyncPass Foreign User Account. So there is a list which organization can issue Singapore Foreign User Account. You can go through the list in the CodePass website. So once you register through them, you will be able to transact in COPPAS. So the steps are detailed here. So you need to first register your details with the SFA organization. After successful validation of your details, the SFA organization will pre-register your SFA. Then SyncPass will provide your SFA details, which is basically a SyncPass user ID via email. You just have to follow the instructions in the email from SyncPass to activate your SFA. So once the SFA is activated, the COPPAS admin can assign roles to foreign users, similar to how local users with SyncPass can be assigned roles. So it's the same process. Okay. So as I mentioned, COPPAS is a whole of government service, and there are very dedicated resources for how to set up COPPAS and address different issues in COPPAS. Here are some of the portals and guides that are available. So there is a dedicated chatbot called ask.gov.sg/COPPAS, where you can post any queries and you will be able to get the answers there. And there are also a very detailed COPPAS process document that you can download as PDF and circulate it with your colleagues abroad, and you can use them to set up your COPPAS accounts. So if there are any issues, you should be able to reach out to the COPPAS team and get them resolved. Okay, I will hand over next to my partner, Eric, for walking us through the portal. Over to you, Eric.
Thank you, Mahesh. Good day. Welcome to the Singapore eCTD portal demo. Thank you very much, Claire, Boon Kian, and Mahesh for some of the important information leading into the demo part of our presentation. So we do have some goals today. Some of the most important goal is to understand the purpose of the eCTD portal, also to review basic concepts, requirements, and constraints, and then conduct 3 separate hands-on live demonstrations so you can observe how easy it is to use, and so that ultimately you will feel comfortable using the eCTD portal. So the purpose of the portal fundamentally is to transfer eCTD sequences to HSA for review. So there are some key benefits. There is no cost to use the eCTD portal. It's available to both local and international companies. It's operational 24/7, excluding scheduled downtime. No interaction with HSA is required to transmit a sequence, so you can transmit autonomously, and it's a web-based, easy-to-use interface. Some key concepts for the portal is that multiple users from the same company can use the portal at the same time. So company X has user A and B. Each user A and B is permitted a single session, and each user can transmit only one package at a time. So A and B and C and D from company X, and E and F and G and H from company Y can all use the portal simultaneously. Once submitted, the sequence package cannot be canceled or recalled, and so this is important to keep in mind. You also cannot retrieve or download the package, i.e. the sequence, from the portal at any time. So what will you need? You will need access to the internet via a standard web browser, a CorpPass account. Mahesh, thank you very much. You will need an eCTD ID. Boon Kian has given us a lead-in on the discussion around an eCTD ID, and you will need a package. A package is not actually required to use the portal, but if you want to transmit a package to HSA for review, then you will need a package. So we will focus on number 3 and number 4 today. Step 1, the eCTD ID. So what is an eCTD ID? It's a unique identifier issued by the eCTD portal, and it is linked to the company's CorpPass login. So why is an eCTD ID necessary? It is the identifier for an eCTD application submitted to HSA in perpetuity. So once utilized for a specific eCTD application, it stays associated with that application throughout the product's entire life cycle, or the multiple products under one application throughout that entire life cycle. So who requires an eCTD ID? Applicants. Applicants who are preparing to submit a new drug application, a generic drug application to HSA through eCTD submission, or applicants who plan to convert a non-eCTD application, such as an ACTD or CTD, to eCTD would require an eCTD ID. So when should you get an eCTD ID? Before the submission of the eCTD package, so that the eCTD ID can be included in the structure and in the envelope of the eCTD sequence. So how do you obtain an eCTD ID? Applicants request the eCTD ID through the eCTD portal after logging in with CourtPass. So let's do a demonstration. So this is the landing page for the eCTD portal. This is a test environment, so excuse if there are any minor details that we may have overlooked at this point. This is the landing page that you will see when you get access to the portal and we launch the portal. And the first step will be to log in with CourtPass. What I do want to highlight package transmission guidelines. Package transmission guidelines are a number of key points that HSA says these are very important for you to be aware of, and these are constants. For example, only one package is allowed per transmission. Only a zip file format is accepted for the package. And as soon as you have initiated the package, the transmission ID will be generated, and after the transmission is successful, you will get a transmission receipt. So just good to know where these are and review them from time to time. You'll also notice at the bottom, there is a getting started, and that will take you to the Singapore eCTD webpage. Download an online user manual and a support link, email address. Note that that email address is not active yet and won't be active until the portal is launched. Okay, let's get started. Let's log in with CourtPass. So we're using MockPass. This is a test environment, and so I'm going to not simulate an actual CourtPass login account. You will need a CourtPass, your company will need CourtPass, and for you to be registered in order to do that. So this is the dashboard for your portal. And you'll notice that there are 3 modules, and as you hover over each of the modules, they are reactive. The 3 modules are Singapore eCTD IDs, transmission, and transmission records, and we will demo each one of those modules. And I do want to call out up at the top, it says name of, and sort of a cryptic name. This is a test environment, and it would say, welcome, Eric Vestal. And at the top, it would say Eric Vestal. So it would be very easy to identify who you are. So the last question was, how do we generate an eCTD ID? So we would go into the SG eCTD ID module, and we would click generate. You would check that your assigned company name is correct. This would be the UEN and the name of your company as registered with ACRA or CourtPass. And you can note that this is not editable, but it should be verified. If you are a consultant and you work for 2 different companies and you have authorized under 2 companies, make sure you are transacting for the right company. Once you have verified that you are with the correct assigned company or transacting for the correct company, all you need to do is click generate. And at that point, the eCTD ID has been generated. You'll see the green bar at the top, and you will notice the eCTD ID is E and a date, 2025-05-28. That's today's date. And then SG, and then a serial number. So the E and the SG are constant. The date will always be the date that the eCTD ID is generated, and the serial is rolling or random. You'll notice that as soon as I have generated that eCTD ID, it has also been added to what is a list of all of the eCTD IDs that are associated with my company. So assigned company name, assigned entity ID. For our test environment, those two numbers are the same. In fact, your company name would be the name of your company is registered with ACRA, and something, your entity ID, your foreign registration, or your UEN number if you're a local company. And this is a list of all Singapore IDs that have been generated by your company. You'll notice that I just generated this eCTD ID, and it says today's date and the date and time that it was issued. So you're able to track or search even by the date time that you might have generated that eCTD ID. You'll notice under latest transmission ID, nothing is listed here. And there are the first four, there are no transmissions. We haven't talked about transmissions yet, but there are no transmissions associated with that eCTD ID, meaning there have been no transactions or no sequences filed with HSA. You'll also notice that this eCTD ID is enabled. So that might lead us to ask, could an eCTD ID be disabled? So we can go into the advanced search feature. We could select disabled, and then we could filter, and we would find, in fact, there are two eCTD IDs that had been issued to my company that are in fact disabled. So we would not want to use those for any active submissions. Now, these have had no submissions in the past, so there was probably no active application, but we can see that these are simply deleted. We can also search for, I'm going to reset the filter. I can also search for a specific serial number of a eCTD ID, and I search only for the last segment, SGS430, and you can see that there are a number of Singapore eCTD IDs ending in SGS430. And in fact, all of those are enabled. So it is very easy to use the advanced filter to do a search based on status or the latest transmission ID if you have a transmission ID that you'd like to refer to, or a Singapore eCTD IDs, a partial Singapore eCTD ID. And you can also use the date to search. So this is very convenient and to help you drill down and find individual Singapore eCTD IDs. So you can also export your full list of eCTD IDs into an Excel format, and that is very useful. So that is the conclusion of our Singapore eCTD ID demo, and I will go back to the dashboard and continue. So some key points. Required to file an eCTD ID is required to file an eCTD application. It's issued by the portal. There's one eCTD ID per eCTD application. Once used for an application, you cannot change the eCTD ID. eCTDs IDs do not expire, but they can be disabled, and they can be disabled by HSA, or they can be transferred by HSA. So you're not able to transfer them, and you're not able to disable them. So step 2, prepare your eCTD package. So what is an eCTD package? Well, let's get into some eCTD portal terminology. What's an eCTD sequence? An eCTD sequence is one unit of an eCTD application. A sequence belongs to a submission, which in turn belongs to an application. Your application has an eCTD ID. Sequences, then, are what are created by the applicant unit by unit and are ultimately what are reviewed by the agency, by HSA. So what's a submission package? A package is what is filed through the portal by the applicant. The package is a single eCTD sequence nested under the application folder and stored in a zip format. Let's take a closer look. Okay, a single eCTD sequence folder. So that would be our application folder, which is a valid eCTD ID. For example, E2024-1028 SG006. It's just a number. For a single eCTD sequence in this case is sequence 0007. So you take your sequence folder, you nest it under your application folder, and you right click or use a tool to convert that to a zip file. So when you convert that to a zip file, you're going to name it. The name of the package is not important, but it is important because it will be stored in the transmission receipt, and you can organize your packages with somewhat of a nomenclature. So they are not important. They're not managed by the portal or assessed by the portal, but they are important for you. Okay. Step 3 would be transmission. So now we've got a package, we've got an eCTD ID, and we've built our package. So now we're going to upload it through the portal. What does the portal do? First, you must upload the package. It could fail during upload if there's an internet timeout or if the package is too large. But let's assume that it's uploaded. That's a check mark. Then it's going to go through a malicious scanning process. And if it passes the malicious scanning process, check. It goes to the next step. Package conformance checks. If it passes package conformance checks, it will then do a verification of your eCTD ID. Is that a valid eCTD ID? Is it issued to your company? If so, you will then be given the opportunity to submit that package. And you will note here that the submit happens after all of the checks, meaning that you can replace the file as many times as needed prior to submitting that package. So if you've made a mistake, if you've uploaded the wrong package, yes, it will go through all of the checks, but you can replace it before you actually submit it. So there are some expectations based on those checks of the applicant in advance of transmitting a sequence to HSA for review. Number 1, use of a valid eCTD ID. Be sure you're getting an eCTD ID that has been issued by the portal to your company. Number 2, you should do a malicious scan prior to uploading it through the portal to make sure you don't have any password protected PDFs or any virus signatures in any of your content. Number 3, complete eCTD validation. Use an eCTD validation tool with the Singapore eCTD validation criteria that has been validated, and to do your eCTD validation before submitting it through the eCTD portal. Some key points about transmission, and I've mentioned these. You can replace the package as many times as needed before you submit it. All the packages, every time you upload a new package, would go through the package checks process. You can leave a package pending for submission for 48 hours. So you've uploaded it, you've heard some chatter in-house, you're not sure if you should click submit or not, and you wait. That's fine. You can wait for 48 hours. After 48 hours, it will expire. You can abort a transmission at any time. There's no penalty for doing so. You would just start next time with a new transmission. You must explicitly submit the package after all of the package checks have been completed. So you upload the package checks are completed, you'll get a red box or a green box, and then you will have to acknowledge and submit the package explicitly. But once submitted, the transmission can no longer be canceled, and you cannot retrieve the package from the portal. It's not a content management system. You can't download it, and you cannot pull it back. All right, let's take a look. So this is the transmission module, and I would click inside the transmission module. And you notice that it's got a nice series of steps: application information, upload, confirm package, and submit. And that's the series of steps that we're going to go through. So we're going to confirm the application information, which is the applicant name and the assigned company. And again, these are not editable, but we should confirm that we are transacting for the correct company. If these are correct, we click next. So now I just need to drag and drop a zip file, my package that I've created offline, and drag and drop into the box here. So you may see a little bit of a blip as I grab my package. So I'm going to drag and drop a zip file from my desktop into. So it's beginning the package checks process immediately. Upload is completed. It is now beginning pre-transmission package scan, malicious scan, conformance checks, and eCTD ID verification. I want to highlight that the package name here is displayed. If whatever you name your package is what will be displayed. It does not mean that this is the eCTD ID or the sequence number. That's just how we've named this package. I want to call out that this is 18 megabytes. This is not a small sequence. It's, nominally good size. And so we wanted to demonstrate with a reasonably good size file how fast the portal is. It is uploaded, completed malicious scan, completed package checks, and done an eCTD ID verification while in the time that I was talking. And you'll notice this package has a red box. It failed. It says upload failed, package verification step not completed. That's not actually the error. It is just a reminder that if it is ejected at any point in the step before eCTD ID verification, it will also not have completed the eCTD ID verification. In this case, error code 201, it is a package verification failed. It is not an eCTD ID that has either been ever issued by the portal or was not issued to my company. And so therefore, it is not accepted. You can see that there's a transmission ID and their package detail information. So it was able to determine the eCTD ID, which is invalid, as well as the sequence number. I have two options here. I can abort, and it would save this information for the record. If I say, whoops, I grabbed the wrong file, or I just named my package incorrectly, I can replace the file. As soon as I replace the file, I'm able to upload another one. And excuse me as I get one from my desktop and drag and drop in. And there, I've got the right package, I think. I'm uploading again. It's another 18 megabytes. It's going to take a minute for this to scan, but it is going to rescan the package from beginning to end again. So every package is checked for malicious scan, for package conformance, as well as for eCTD ID verification. So I could abort or cancel during the transmission. We're going to let this one finish. You will note that on the last screen, there was a transmission ID, and that a transmission ID begins with TID and then a series of numbers. A transmission ID is a unique identifier for an individual transmission, ultimately encapsulating the content of the package that you uploaded, the name of the package, the file size of the package, which are shown here, the transmission ID and the package details, eCTD ID, sequence number, file name, and file size. So in this case, it passed. That means I passed all of the checks. And now I want to continue. I confirm my package details, go to the next page. So this is the confirmation step. You review your information, and if you're sure this is what you want to submit to HSA for review, you would then click submit. And at that point, I have a transmission receipt. The transmission receipt is evidence that you have uploaded through the portal and that it was accepted by the portal. And you're able to download that transmission receipt for your records, either and or PDF or XML. And at that point, your transmission is complete, and we could look at the status of that transmission. This is the transmission that we just completed, sequence number 1, and it says it is routing to the eCTD system. So that is the end of the demonstration for the transmission, but I'd like to review the steps. Review the applicant information, upload the package, it will automatically be checked, confirm the package, submit the package, download your transmission receipt, and then it will be staged for the eCTD system. If it fails any of the checks, the package must be replaced or the transmission canceled, and it will not continue. A note about the transmission receipt. So after submitting, you can download a transmission receipt, which we showed, or you can retrieve it later. The transmission receipt includes the applicant name, company, entity ID, the transmission ID, which is good for communicating if you have a question with HSA, the Singapore eCTD ID, and the sequence number, the package file name and file size. And here's the note. It also has a date time submitted, and that's evidence for you internally that is when you filed that and clicked submit. But the date time transmission receipt is not the date time on the transmission receipt is not the official date time receipt by HSA. It's evidence of transmission, and it's useful for your internal records as well as communication with HSA if needed. But the official date time receipt for HSA is when the sequence passes eCTD validation. So this is just important note to keep in mind and be aware of. Okay, transmission records. The transmission record modules provides visibility to both active and prior transmissions, the current status of any active transmission, a log of all transmissions by your company for all eCTD IDs assigned to your company. So for each transmission, submitted or not, so if you have a transmission ID, it provides access to the transmission record. For all submitted transmissions, it will also provide you access to the transmission receipt. So you may save it, or someone saved it and they left, and now you need to go back and get the transmission receipt. The portal will allow you to go back and get the transmission receipt at any point in the future. So let's do a demonstration. Okay, transmission records module, the third module. And as you saw, we just uploaded and transmitted a package, and the transmission ID is the one ending there in 5834 with Singapore eCTD ID 7430. And it says the status is routing to eCTD system. So that's correct. If I actually click on the transmission ID details, it will show me all of the steps that were taken as that package was being processed. So if this screen was open and you clicked refresh, you would actually see each one of these states be reflected as the current status in the transmission module, in the transmission records module. So you would see pending upload, pending malicious scan, pending package check, failed package check. That was our first case. Pending package upload, pending malicious scan, pending package check, pending submission, submitted transmission, and routing to eCTD system. So there are further steps that will happen after routing to eCTD system, and we can see some examples here. If you canceled a transmission, it will show aborted. There may be steps that are worthwhile looking at in aborted, for example, and you can say the package check has successfully completed, and it was pending submission, but it was never submitted, and the package was aborted. The other case to be aware of is the duplicate sequence. So let's say you have filed sequence 99 with HSA, and it's been accepted for review and it's passed eCTD validation, but your colleague is not aware, and they also file sequence 99. And so, but they do it on a different day perhaps. And so they upload sequence 99, and the system will know that that sequence for that application has already been transacted and accepted by HSA, and it will explicitly call that out as a duplicate sequence. So in this case, pending validation, but no validation outcome because it was detected as a duplicate sequence. So at that point, it is rejected from the portal, by the portal, but it's not that there was another sequence that was accepted by HSA that matches it. So that's a point where you need to have a conversation with HSA. Did they receive the right one or the wrong one? And that's an important time to use the transmission ID to have a discussion. There is a failed routing to the eCTD system that can also be caused by a duplicate. If the two sequences are submitted within a very, very short period of time of each other, then one may not be processed, but the first one would. So in this case, the first one passed eCTD validation, but the second one was rejected. So a couple of different examples of a duplicate sequence that may come up. So transmission records you can export. You can look at the individual record, download the transmission receipt, or you can export all of the transmissions. You also have access to the filters. So for example, if I want to filter, I don't have to know all of the information. I may only know that it ended in SG0009 and that it was sequence 0009. And if I know a little bit of information and I filter, I'm able to find that Singapore eCTD ID ending in SG009, that sequence 9 was filed, and perhaps there was a duplicate sequence. In this case, we could say it passed validation, and it's easy to use the advanced filter and a couple of fields within the advanced filter in order to drill down even further. So you could also add failed import in the status and filter. And now we would have two cases of Singapore eCTD ID with SG009, sequence number 009 that had a status of failed import. So the advanced filter is very powerful, very useful to use in order to help you locate records from the past across various eCTD IDs for your company. So that concludes the transmission records demo, and we'll go back to the presentation. After transmission, you may have some questions. So we saw there was a status of passed validation, and there might be a status of failed validation. So what's happening? There are two cases. So in the case of passes validation, a sequence is accepted for screening by HSA. The portal end state will reflect it passed validation. The official date time of receipt by HSA is the time that it passes eCTD validation. All contacts in the envelope or administrative information of the sequence will receive an email notification that the sequence passed eCTD validation. However, the eCTD validation report will not be attached to the email that says it passed validation. In the case of fails validation, the sequence is not reviewed by HSA. HSA probably doesn't even know that it didn't pass validation. They're not looking at the portal like that. And so the sequence, this is really something for you to manage internally within your company. The portal, though, the end state will reflect failed validation. All contacts listed in the envelope of the sequence will receive an email notification that the sequence failed. In this case, along with the validation report. Here, the applicant should correct the sequence and transmit it through the portal again. And you will have a different transmission ID under the same eCTD ID with the different status outcome, as we saw in the transmission records. So some reminders regarding eCTD validation. eCTD validation outcome is reported in the portal, but eCTD validation is not completed by the portal. The eCTD validation report is not available through the portal. Portal users and contacts in the envelope are two different groups. So regulatory operations may be the portal users, and contacts in the envelope may be regulatory affairs. So it's important to understand who is receiving information when. So in this case, portal users will see the status, and contacts in the envelope would receive the email. The portal itself does not send any emails. Email notification regarding validation is sent by the eCTD system. Here's an example of an email to the sequence contacts, right? Every sequence could have a different list of contacts. One group might be pharmacovigilance, another might be primary, and so they may be two different lists. So it's important to know who is receiving the email. This is an example of an email that would be sent from HSA eCTD systems with the subject sequence failed technical validation with the eCTD ID or application ID dash sequence number. And it would include the e-validation report because it failed validation. It would also say, dear applicant, the sequence has failed eCTD technical validation, and therefore it's rejected, as you will see in the portal. So it will say job status completed, and the validation result may show information, may show warnings, And if it shows any errors, it will be rejected by eCTD validation. That is the conclusion of our hands-on demo, and I want to thank my colleagues at WebSparks and at Lorenz for all of support and HSA today as well. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eric. It was a detailed demo on the portal, and I hope everyone now has a clear picture in their minds on what the portal is for and how to use it. Wilo will now take us through a few important points on what to expect in the coming months. Just give me a second while I switch situation.
Thanks, Claire. So now I'm excited to share with everyone the next steps in eCTD implementation in Singapore. So currently, we're at the final stage of testing to ensure all information submitted to us are secure. The portal is scheduled to launch for test submission by Q3, Q4 this year. Closer to the launch date, we will also be publishing a user manual for the portal. It will contain detailed information on how to use the portal, how to interpret the error codes, as well as the transmission status you have seen just now. And of course, if you have prepared the package as per the published specification, perform the required malicious scanning, and the validation, you should not experience any error codes. And from now until then, we would like you to start preparation works. So for foreign companies, and we have seen a lot of questions on that, you can if you do not have a court pass to transact in Singapore, you can proceed to register for a court pass. For local entities who would like to engage your global publishing team, as well as contractors to help you prepare the package and submit through the portal on your behalf, you can proceed to register for the SingPass foreign user account. And with that, we hope you will have a smooth experience once the portal is launched. When the portal is launched, please do prepare the test submission package in accordance with the published SG eCTD specification version 1.0. The test submission period will last for 6 months once we launch. And please note that all the information provided during the test submission period will not be reviewed and will be deleted at the end of the test submission period. The reason for that is really for the purpose of the test submission is really for you to verify the chosen solution is compatible with the Singapore eCTD system, and it's also to familiarize you with the process. At the end of the test submission period, we will accept the actual dossier from next year Q2 onwards. At the initial launch, we will accept eCTD dossiers for new drug applications, generic drug applications, as well as the drug master file submissions. We strongly encourage all companies to onboard the eCTD dossier submission. And we are also aware that there are companies who has currently registered product are interested to convert those products to the eCTD format. You are welcome to do so. You may refer to the published guidance on how to do that via a baseline submission. So with that, I look forward to eCTD submissions in the coming months. And I would now like to hand back to Claire to kickstart the Q&A section. Thank you.
Thank you, Wilo, for the quick notes on the next steps in the months to come. So we will now start with questions and answers. We have received your questions within Zoom, and we will be answering them live one by one. If we run out of time and are not able to answer your question, we will compile all these questions and update the Q&A document, which is currently located on our webpage. So without further ado, let's start with the first question. Okay, so this is a question about DMF submission. So for DMF restricted part submitted directly by the API manufacturer, do companies have to go through the same process? Maybe I'll direct this question to Wilo.
Thanks, Claire. So I would first like to clarify for DMF, for the DMF holder, I believe that API manufacturer is referring to the DMF holder. They do have to submit both the open part as well as the closed part, or otherwise known as the applicant part and restricted part. So they may submit both parts directly to HSA via the portal. Most of our DMF holders are actually overseas entities. So if you want to onboard this eCTD journey, please proceed to register for the Corp Pass, and you may be able to do that through the portal directly. Now, it will be the same process as what I explained earlier by Boon Kian. Thank you.
Thank you, Lily. So for our next question, if we already have SingPass, do we still need Corp Pass? Maybe I'll direct this to Mahesh.
Thank you. Yes, even if you have SingPass, you still need Corp Pass because you need to be authorized by the organization to transact on behalf of the organization. That's why you need Corp Pass. The organization needs to assign you a role within Corp Pass and allow you to transact government services on company's behalf. So that permission needs to be set in Corp Pass. That's why you need Corp Pass.
Okay, thank you, Mahesh. Right, let's go on to our next question. Are there any fees applicable when applying for Corp Pass? Maybe I'll send this back to Mahesh again.
Yeah, similar to SingPass, Corp Pass is also free. There is no cost involved.
Okay, quite simple. Okay, and the next question. So this is from someone who says that they understand that eCTD will be applicable only to NDAs and GTAs and DMFs initially. So when will eCTD implementation apply for the management of life cycle activities, and will this be on a voluntary basis? I'll direct this to Wei-Lu, please.
Thanks, Claire, and thanks for this question. I think it's a very important concept to clarify. So once you started the eCTD journey, to have the benefits of using eCTD, you should continue the life cycle in eCTD. So for all the variations or updates to a DMF, you should continue to file via eCTD. So I think that's the first part of the question. For the second part, whether everything is on a voluntary basis, we do strongly encourage everyone to onboard the eCTD journey with us. At the same time, we do understand some companies may require a little bit more time. That's why we actually make the initial launch as optional, although we will review the adoption and we may roll out the subsequent phases of the implementation in the long run. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I'm sure there are many companies who are interested in the response to those questions. Okay, now on to the next one. So foreign users used to be able to access PRISM using HSA PIN, and will HSA PIN still be used to access the eCTD portal? I'll direct this to Boon Kian, please.
Thank you, Claire. So as shared, for applications, it still have to be submitted through PRISM, and that's where foreign users will use HSA PIN to access PRISM. However, for eCTD portal, HSA PIN, which is specific to PRISM, will not be applicable. Users will have to request for a foreign Corp Pass if you do not have a local Corp Pass in order to access the eCTD portal. Thank you.
Okay, next question. So this is about why eCTD doesn't apply to the ASEAN CTD format since HSA is under ASEAN. Maybe I'll direct this to Wei-Lu again.
Thanks, Claire. I would like to clarify that the eCTD is actually relying on a backbone that is being published by ICH. So you may be aware we are actually using eCTD version 3.2.2, which is a backbone that is supported by ICH. So currently, the ICH only support the ICH CTD format. That's why we are unable to support the eCTD format for this eCTD. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, now let's go on to the next question. So can foreign entities apply for NDAs now? Maybe I'll send this to Boon Kian again, please.
Thanks, Claire. No, unfortunately, foreign entities cannot apply for NDAs because remember, to submit an NDA, PRISM application is still required, and we also require local registrants to be local entities. So why do we introduce a foreign Corp Pass? It's to enable DMF holders from overseas to file their DMF in eCTD. So just to clarify, for NDA submission, it's only for local companies. Thank you.
Okay, let's move on now to the next question on baseline submissions. So baseline submissions for registered products should be provided for MAV and MIV activities. So what would be the content of the baseline be? Is it limited to module 1 and module 3, for example, or full modules 1 to 5? So I'll send this to you again, please.
Thank you. So I'm happy to see that there are companies interested to converting the existing registered products to the eCTD format. So in order to do a baseline submission, as mentioned in the eCTD specification and Q&A document, you actually do not require to provide the registered dossier. What you can do, you can just provide a cover letter to have some background on what are the previous activities has been performed for this particular product. At the same time, I do understand some companies that want to provide a baseline in the eCTD, which is also possible. In order to do that, you can do a partial dossier or you can do a full. Although we do encourage, if you want to provide a baseline, it would be good to provide a full baseline information. And at the same time, you are required to provide a declaration in the cover letter that there's no changes to the dossier that is submitted as compared to what is currently being registered. And do take note that the baseline dossiers provided will not be reviewed by HSA. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, I hope that's clear about baseline submissions. Okay, the next question is about the eCTD ID. So is the eCTD ID company or user specific or is it product specific? Wei Lu, what do you think?
Okay. So eCTD ID, as shared by Eric, you can request this eCTD ID from the portal, and it's associated with a code pass that you log in when you request for the eCTD ID. So it is a company specific, it is not user specific. Different users under the same company will be able to use that particular eCTD ID to submit packages. When a eCTD ID is generated, you can include it in the eCTD application, which will be used for a specific product. So the answer for the second part is yes, it should be product specific for eCTD ID. Thank you.
Okay, I hope that clarifies. Okay, so this one is again about the eCTD ID. So to request for the eCTD ID from the eCTD portal, do companies have to log in with CorpPass and not SingPass or HSA PIN? And if yes, what is the option for foreign users to log in? So I'll direct this to Mahesh, please.
Yeah, thank you. So eCTD uses CorpPass for login, right? So for foreign users, as I mentioned, there is SingPass foreign user account that needs to be applied, and that user has to be provided the necessary roles and privileges in the CorpPass account. Then the foreign user can also transact via CorpPass with all of the e-services, including eCTD, just like a local user.
Thank you, Mahesh. Okay, another question on the eCTD ID. So how long will a generated eCTD ID be valid? If I create it today, can I transmit the eCTD 1 month later? I'll send this to Ken, please.
Thank you, Claire. There is no expiry date for eCTD ID that you have obtained from eCTD portal. So if you obtain the ID today, you can certainly package it and transmit the eCTD through the portal using this eCTD ID 1 month later. Actually, the next few questions are on eCTD ID. Perhaps Claire can show the question. Okay, so how is the eCTD ID assigned to a specific product? As Eric had mentioned just now, after you obtain the eCTD ID, the company will decide which eCTD ID is meant for which product, and you include it into the envelope of the eCTD ID, and that eCTD ID will become associated with that specific product. And companies will have to maintain their own list of eCTD ID and as to which ID is for which product. The next question, Claire. And how do I... link this eCTD ID to my PRISM form submission. So basically, when you submit the PRISM application form, you can code the eCTD ID as attachment in PRISM. So currently in PRISM submission form, under the supporting document, we have a supporting document called CD submission. It's this particular field for companies to attach a document to let us know that you are submitting using CD. But if you are submitting using eCTD instead, you can use this same field under the supporting document and attach the document quoting the eCTD ID that you are using this eCTD for this PRISM application. So that will provide us with a link. Okay, so the next question is on following implementation, will supporting document in PRISM no longer be applicable? So the answer is yes. Like I mentioned just now, you just have to attach the document to indicate that you are this PRISM submission is using eCTD ID, and you will not be required to attach the documents into PRISM, including Module 1 documents. Okay, so back to you, Claire.
Okay, thank you, Boon Kian, for tackling those few questions together. Now let's go on to the next question. So this is about disabling eCTD. So when and under what kind of scenarios would eCTD be disabled, and what would be the basis of doing so? I will hand this to Wei Lu, please.
And so when you request for eCTD ID, it will always be enabled. We understand that we have shown there's ability by HSA to disable eCTD ID. So under what circumstance it should be disabled? It's quite simple. When the registration is cancelled, that you no longer need to use this particular eCTD ID for the products, it will be disabled. So this is also help you to identify that you will no longer be using that particular eCTD ID. The same apply to DMF. When a DMF is cancelled or is no longer associated with any products, you will be disabled. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Wei Lu. Okay, in this next question, this person is asking whether they can put two ICH-CTDs in one zip folder for eCTD submission, assuming that both are using the same eCTD ID. So I hope I've understood this question correctly. Maybe I'll send this to Wei Lu again.
So in one single package, you can only have one eCTD ID and one sequence. Maybe it's the name of the file that actually misled the inquirer. The name, as mentioned by Eric, the name of the zip file is actually not important. What is inside the zip file is a critical aspect that will be verified by the portal as well as the validation. So in the folder structure, you have to follow the exact folder structure that is published in the eCTD specification version 1.01. So in terms of the zip file name, it can be in this format, it can be ABC, it can be a product name that you can find an identifier that is useful for you. So I hope that I address this question. If you have any further comments or clarification to this question, please do feel free to put in the Q&A and we can follow up. Thank you.
Okay. Now for the next question, there were a few questions regarding size limits. So the zip asking about the zip file size limit for eCTD upload, maximum size for a package, and how to upload if the size exceeds the limit. So I'll send this to Boon Kian, please.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, so for the zip file size limit, it is 50 gigabytes, 50 GB, and this will be the maximum size allowed for one eCTD package. And for the question about what happens if the file size is more than 50 GB, we think that's a very unlikely scenario. 50 GB is really quite huge. So if you really do encounter such a scenario, perhaps you can contact HSA. Then we will discuss with you further on how to handle this situation.
Great, thank you,
Back to
Boon Kian.
Claire.
Okay, the next one is about software. So So would a company require an eCTD software for submitting an eCTD package using the portal? And separately, where can companies find the eCTD validation tool? So I'll send this to Lu, please.
This is a very big question and very important one. When it comes to the eCTD preparation, there are different ways of preparing an eCTD package, and there are different solutions possible for the company to consider. So I'll just lay out a few. Some companies may choose to purchase the software and have an in-house team to do the publishing and then submit the package to HSA. Other companies may find it more cost-effective to engage a consultant to do it for them, so they don't have to purchase the software to do it themselves. So the short answer to this is no, you actually do not require the software, but there are different possibilities. And where can we find the eCTD validation tool? There are different, there are different possibilities. The consultant or the contractor you engage may be able to provide the validation tool, the service to you. And there are also free validation tools available out there. Of course, there are also paid ones. You do need to test and see if the validation outcome provided by those tools are actually consistent with what is being provided by HSA. That's why we are providing this test submission period for you to test out and verify if the chosen solution is indeed compatible with the HSA eCTD system. I hope that answers this question. And back to you, Claire.
Okay, this next question is on failed verification. So what happens when the verification of a package fails? Will a company know which part of the eCTD needs to be fixed? So I'll send this to Eric, please.
Thank you, Claire. So package verification is different than eCTD validation. So if you have used eCTD validation prior to uploading your package to the portal, there would be no issue. So use a really good eCTD validation tool, and then the package would pass the verification checks. It's always possible that when you packaged it into a zip file that you made a mistake. You either didn't name the application folder correctly, or you accidentally grabbed two sequence folders at the same time, but it would be a valid eCTD sequence. And so in this case, the portal will be as clear as it can be in saying you've got two applications, or you've got two sequence folders, or you've got password protected PDFs, and there are a series of error codes. And the online manual, which will be available when we launch, will have those error codes and the details regarding them. You can also always ask for help.
Thank you, Eric. Okay, so this next question is, so if this is, we're talking about the evaluation phase. So what happens if there's a need to resubmit an updated part of the eCTD? Then what should companies do? I'll send this to Boon Kian, please.
Thank you, Claire. So if you need to resubmit the updated part of eCTD, for example, there's an error in compilation, you should prepare another sequence to submit the correct document with a lifecycle operation to replace the wrong document. Yeah, I hope this clarifies. So the next question, perhaps Claire can flash it. Yeah, so the next question is on how long would the eCTD validation process typically take? Actually, this will the validation process should complete within 24 hours. And this period of time is not considered part of the screening process because HSA has not received the package yet. So similarly for the next question, so when the package has been transmitted, it means it passed validation, and the contact listed in the envelope will be informed that it has passed validation. Then this date where the package passed validation will be considered the date where HSA receives the package. And that is where we can actually start the screening process. Thank you. Back to you, Claire.
Thanks, Mungkian. Okay, so this next question. So it says that some clients have very stringent requirements regarding documentation, often requesting for proof of submission and authority receipts down to the documents level. Can the transmission record report all file contents down to individual files within a zip folder to fulfill such clients' requirements as they deem zip folder name insufficient due to the lack of granularity. So send this to Wei Lu, please.
Yeah, thank you for this question. Currently, the portal is not catered to provide the detailed breakdown. When we design the portal, we try to balance the information that is available in the portal with the necessity of having this. But now we understand this request, and please do provide additional details regarding this request, and we will review if we are able to accommodate that in a subsequent release or update to the portal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so for this question, for Prism, a foreign user who logs into the system using HSA PIN will not be able to see the application submitted by a local user who logs in using SingPass. For both local and foreign users working for the same local Singapore company. So would this scenario also occur for the eCTD portal whereby local and foreign users would have the different access or views of the applications in the portal? So will I send this to Wei Lu?
Thank you for this question. So for Prism, is using the HS PIN, but as explained by Boon Kian and Mahesh as well as Eric, for you to use the eCTD portal, you will be using a CorpPass account, not a HSA PIN. So there will be no difference between local or foreign users as long as you have registered for the CorpPass and being assigned by the CorpPass admin to the e-services to transact for using the HSA eCTD portal. So there will be no difference in the access or view of the applications or transmission record or eCTD IDs. I hope that clarifies. Thank you.
Thank you, Wei Lu. Okay, this is an interesting question. Are there recommended times or days to submit a sequence? We have seen that for EMA or FDA, it is usually challenging late afternoons and end of the week. Send this to Wei Lu, please.
Yeah, it's a very interesting question. We want to find out that as well. You can, during the test submission period, you can just act per normal when you plan to do the submission, and we will monitor and we'll be able to tell you at the end of the test submission period if we see any peak time for the submission, and we may be able to recommend, the off-peak period for you for the production period. So currently we don't have the data, so we won't know, but it will be interesting to find out. Thank you.
Okay, so in other words, you have to make good use of the test submission period for us to find out the answer to this question. Okay, next one. How can multiple users work simultaneously on eCTD portal on the same eCTD ID? Does this mean that each user can upload different modules and these modules will be automatically consolidated into the same application in the portal? Send this to Wei Lu, please.
Okay. The purpose of allowing multiple users to submit packages under the same eCTD ID is really to allow you to submit different regulatory activities. Currently, we do allow concurrent variations to be filed. So a user A from the company may be filing a MIV application, a minor variation application to update your CMC dossier. Another user might be filing a MIV application to update the package information, for example. So you can do it simultaneously to submit different sequence at the same time via the eCTD portal. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question about the checklist. So is the Appendix 2A checklist submission still required with eCTD validation? I'll send this to Boon Kian, please.
Yeah, thanks, Claire. The answer is yes, we will still require companies to submit the application checklist. And this is because the application checklist is not just, the purpose is not to check on whether the document is present or not. Actually, in the checklist, we also provided a lot of guidance to remind applicants on what exactly are the documentary requirements and to ensure that when the applicants submit the filing, it is actually complete and fulfilling all the documentary requirements. That's why these application checklists would still be a required document. Thank you, Claire.
Thanks, Boon. Okay, this next question is again about the eCTD ID. So the question is, why does the eCTD ID need to be generated manually and tagged manually to an application, and could it not be automatically generated for the first submission or sequence and automatically tagged to the application as a result? So this person is interested to know whether there are any technological limitations or any specific reasons for our decision. So I'll send this to Wei-Lu, please.
Okay, I would like to clarify, in order for us to know that you want to initiate a submission, there is action need to be taken by the applicant. So that's the first step is for you to generate the eCTD ID. And do remember, before you submit a sequence in the eCTD portal, you need to file the PRISM application first. And as mentioned by Boon Kian earlier, you do need to code the eCTD ID in the PRISM application form. So that will help us to link these two packages together. But you are right, it's a potential a technological limitation. We will try to integrate and see how to improve the user experience on these aspects. Thank you.
Thank you, Wei-Lu. Okay, the next slide contains a few questions on similar topics. So this is all about whether when will eCTD be mandatory, what is the tentative mandatory date, and so forth. So I'll send this to Wei-Lu, please.
Yeah, thank you for this question. It's a very important one. As much as we want to encourage everybody to onboard eCTD as soon as possible. But we do understand there are some companies require more time to assess the available solutions available and to find that is a suitable solution based on their business needs. So currently, it remains optional at this point of time. We will, as mentioned earlier, we will review the adoption rate and engage the industry closely and assess when we are ready to move on to the next phase or subsequent phases of implementation. We may take different phases to make certain application types to become a mandatory submission, but this will need to be discussed subsequently. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry, I just want to touch on the last point. So the test submission period, as mentioned earlier, it will start in Q3, Q4 this year. It will last for 6 months. And at the end of the test submission period, we will be allowing voluntary submission of eCTD dossier from Q2 next year onwards. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, another question here. So we were informed that we are unable to retrieve any of the uploaded eCTD. So how can we check on the approved information within eCTD or PRISM? Maybe I'll send this to Wei-Lu again.
When you submit information in eCTD portal, you should have a copy of the information of the package that you have submitted to us. So the latest version that included in the latest package will be the approved information, and the application status will still be resides with PRISM for the regulatory activities. And for the approved product information, you will still be published on the HSA website as what we are currently doing. I hope that I address this question. Thank you.
Okay, so the next question, is there any window or time frame available for organizations to perform pilot submissions? We touched on this a little bit. Send this to Wei-Lu again so that she can repeat what she mentioned earlier.
I would like to understand this question. What are you referring to for pilot submissions? Are you trying to submit actual dossier during the test submission period, you can actually do that. It's just that the dossiers will not be reviewed during that test submission period. But in any case, if there is a business need for you to, provide the information in eCTD format earlier, you can actually write in to us for us to understand the request better. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, another one. Will there be a deadline for submitting baselines of already registered products? You'll have to trouble Welu again, please.
Okay, sure. There's no deadline of submitting baseline. Whenever you are ready, you can convert the current registered products to the eCTD format. It's also possible for you to have a baseline submission and start with the regulatory activities in eCTD format and perform another baseline submission to provide the full baseline dossier during the eCTD in the eCTD format. But before you do that, do consult with HSA if this is allowed and how to do it properly so that you don't have run into any issues when you are doing that. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Welu. Okay, we have time for just a couple more questions before we close for today. Okay, so this is a question about whether eCTD submission via the portal includes all modules or just technical modules 2 to 5, and then would module 1 be submitted through PRISM only? And if submitting the eCTD via the portal, do companies still have to log in to PRISM to complete the application form and upload module 1 in PRISM, or should module 1 be uploaded in eCTD? And will we have any PRISM updates to reflect that the documents are submitted via eCTD? So I'll send this to Boon Kian, please.
Thank you, Claire. Okay, for this question, actually, we have already answered it, but I can reiterate again. So for applications, you still have to submit it via PRISM. So that is the application form. And the difference is, if you're using eCTD, after you have completed the PRISM application form, you do not need to upload the documents inside the supporting document section. What you need to upload is one document under CD submission to inform HSA this application is using which eCTD ID. So other than that, one attachment, the rest of the attachment, including module 1, does not need to be submitted in PRISM. Hope this clarifies. Back to you, Claire.
Okay, thank you, Boon Kian. Okay, we'll take just one last question before we close for today. So this is about if a company wants to register the same product with different concentrations, would that mean that they would submit a separate application as they currently do, or would that be under one submission package in eCTD? And would each strength of the same product require a different eCTD ID? So I'll send this to Welu, please.
Thank you for this question. And this is a very important concept. A short answer to this is the company can decide whether you want to put them under the same eCTD application or not. So how do you determine which is a suitable method? It depends on the life cycle of the products. So if you foresee that different concentrations will always have the same life cycle, meaning all the MIV1s variations will apply to the same for the different concentrations the same way, it will be good to consolidate them under one single eCTD applications. However, if you have plans, for example, to have different manufacturers, to have different package insert even for those products, you may want to register, pack them on the different eCTD applications, which means they will have different eCTD ID. And it will also allow you to do the transfer of some of the concentrations to other companies or other registrants more easily in the long run. So it's really on the company's strategy, what is the plan for those products. Then you can determine which is a suitable way to compile your package, whether it's under a single eCTD ID or multiple different eCTD ID. Thank you.
Okay, so we will now have a few closing comments from our director, Ms. Agnes Chan, before we end for today. So just give us a couple of seconds for the switch over.
Thank you, everyone, for participating in this afternoon's training session for the eCTD portal. And I trust that the hands-on demonstration as well as the Q&A session have been helpful to prepare stakeholders on how to use our portal for transmitting eCTD packages as well as your future eCTD submissions. So with this, I want to thank you again for your participation and the questions. We will publish all the materials, including a video of the training just now on HSA website. And I trust that the Q&A sessions have addressed most of your questions. But if you still have questions, please feel free to reach out to our team. We'll be happy to assist. So with that, thank you and have a good afternoon.
Okay, so with that, we come to the end of today's session. So we have a QR code here that leads to a feedback form. So please take a couple of minutes to visit the form and provide us with your feedback. And we'll be happy to take in all your comments and to improve for future sessions. Thank you very much and have a good afternoon.